lovely. The heat is lovely.
I got attacked by twice. I got stuck 7 times. I had to go to the emergency. This hand was twice the size of this one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, did it? Wow.
What makes us legit?
Voters here.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Kathy.
Kathy and Chad. How many do we need?
No, that's everybody below us is
Yeah.
voting. We need
6, 7. So we need 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
How are you?
Those things. Got me here. My hand blew off like a balloon. It was twice the size. And they got me in my abdomen.
Carol, just do we have enough to get going, or should we wait? Yeah.
She would probably go.
Leave him up there by himself.
Well, you know what?
Drew's in North
Winfrey is right here.
Turn like backwards anyway for this whole thing.
Drew's in North Carolina.
Drew's, I am Drew.
Right. Oh, and I didn't see anything from Kurt's on vacation. I know that.
Okay.
So
Carol, did
She
you?
would know if we're expecting anybody else.
Carol, are we expecting anyone else?
Oh, Alan.
Hold on. Carol, who else are we expecting?
You are expecting Betty Hurt, substitute performing,
Oh, we did.
and Cheyenne, her brother's in the hospital.
Okay.
Kurt's on
Janine
vacation.
didn't get back to me, and Winfield is here.
Yes. Okay.
And Alan?
Thank you.
Hey,
We're good.
I thought you were on vacation.
Oh, I reviewed.
We have personalized packets.
Thanks to Carol. Carol, you just let me know.
Is that Kurt? Yes. I love Civ. Are you a Civ fan? I'm a huge Civ fan. I'm obsessed with Civ. My husband calls it my spreadsheet game.
Civ's a passion freeze.
Yeah.
Sid Meier's, is that doing?
Yeah.
That was apparently what this was doing the last time. Wow.
I never play a shooting club because they always like kind of crush me on dailies.
All right. If we can get going with our meeting, it is now 6:33. I want to do the roll call. I am acting. Drew is on vacation, so I will be handling the meeting. She says. Okay. I am present. Kathy?
Here.
Laura?
Here.
Alan is not here. Cheyenne is not. Chad?
Here.
Janine is not. Russell?
Here.
Winfield?
Here.
Kurt?
Here.
Thank you. All righty. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So today we're going to have a special guest. Rebecca Hayden will be speaking about the rain garden. And Rebecca is president of the Watershed Coalition of the Lehigh Valley. We also have Mara Hayden, who is the district engineer for Hampton County Conservation District, as well as Ross Melanin. I just killed your last name, sorry. Sorry, who is a PE in the Master Watershed. So thank you for attending, and we look forward to your presentation.
Are you guys gonna do anything for business first, or?
No, we'll go ahead.
You're first.
You're first.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Should I use this?
Yes, it should be
Like, will
on.
this work? Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. And Carol, who just vanished, perfect, said, I don't have a clicker, right?
You do not.
I do not have a
She
clicker.
does it for you.
So I will wait for Carol to click. While I'm waiting, I actually have a question for everybody here, including you folks. Is there any particular question or concern or, impetus for an interest in Rain Gardens that comes from the township? Are there any questions that you would like answered in the next 35, 40 minutes?
I think this came about, we were reviewing the stormwater management plan.
Yep.
And it sort of grew out of that. So a lot of us, not all of us, a lot of us here are learning. So really, in my opinion, we want to know what it is. We're trying to figure out if we abide by the stormwater guidelines that are out there, and then how, if possible, we can use this in our township. But there's a lot of us here, I believe, that just need to be informed of what it is and what is the overall, I don't want to say purpose, but how it can help our township, I guess.
Your name is?
Kathy.
Kathy. All right, that is really helpful, and I'll respond to that before I give this presentation. Anybody else have anything else before I get started? Okay, so I'm actually going to answer your question before I even get started in this presentation to put the presentation in context. This presentation that I'm about to give is going to answer your question about what a rain garden is and what function it serves. And at the same time, rain gardens in a regulatory sense are actually a completely different animal, okay? So as I'm going through and I'm talking about what a rain garden is and how you could stick one in your yard, or you could put one, at the township building here, or whatever that would serve a demonstration purpose, stormwater management best management practices are an engineering practice. And so, luckily enough, a little over 30 years ago, I gave birth to this human who is now a civil engineer. She's a PE, who specializes, her degree is in, and she's working in stormwater management in the regulatory sense. So when you have questions about the regulatory implementation of rain gardens, Mira's going to be able to answer those questions, not just now sitting here, but because she's the district engineer at Northampton County Conservation District, if as you guys are working through your stormwater, ordinance or any specific development, and the EAC is reviewing it and you're having questions about the practices and you're looking at a plan and going, does this make sense? The person you would reach out to.
Literally my job.
Right. So Mira, and I don't know whether it will go through or if I need to hand her the mic, but do you want to add anything to what I just said, or is that, here, let's see if this works.
I mean, I can clarify.
Is this like, oh, because it's being live streamed?
Right.
Okay. So rain gardens are one of many stormwater control measures that are used in a regulatory sense. So it's one of many. This is just one. There are lots. And in Pennsylvania, there are two main regulatory reasons that you would put in a rain garden. One of them would be your MS4 permit, right? Which you guys are looking at. You're looking at your stormwater plan. And that's to meet requirements from the MS4 permitting. You're required to reduce either a certain amount of volume in your storm sewer system or a certain amount of sediment or a certain amount of different pollutants. And different stormwater control measures can be used to do that. Rain gardens are one of them. The other big regulatory thing is your NPDES permit, National Pollution Elimination Discharge. That is your land development, your building permit. If you're moving earth, this is the permit you get if you're doing earth disturbance over an acre. So when you guys, when the town council gets plans that have to get approved by the township, that also has to get approved by the conservation district. Those are the regulations we're looking at, and those are different. Similar but different. So they're also going to be required to reduce a certain amount of volume, a certain amount of pollutants or whatever if they're doing a new development. But that's a different permit. So those are the two big regulatory reasons you might put them in. You might put them in for non-regulatory reasons, including there's a big puddle in your yard every time it rains. Yeah, every time it rains, there's a big puddle that sticks around for, 2 weeks and breeds mosquitoes. And the government doesn't care, but you care. So there's no regulatory reason to put it in, but you put it in. You put it in because you want to redirect your roof runoff into the ground. Those are non-regulatory reasons that Rebecca is going to go over. But the two big regulatory things are your NPDES permits and your MS4 permits.
Perfect. So I do want to make that, I think this distinction is made really clear. I am going to be talking about rain gardens that you put in because you feel like putting in a rain garden. And I'm going to move fairly quickly through this because Paige already told me that she presented about the MS4 permit. And so I am assuming that nobody, let's see if this works. Oh my gosh, it did. Nobody actually needs me to explain what stormwater is, but having said that, Carol, I am going to need you to look sharp and start moving things forward. So this is the table of contents of this presentation. Keep going. So I am going to assume that everybody knows what stormwater is and also that everybody can read. So I'm not going to read the slides. Next slide. So I think the impacts of increased stormwater runoff are obvious to everybody. Flooding, erosion, silt in streams. It messes with aquatic habitat. It causes increased treatment costs for drinking water intakes. Obviously, less water gets down into the groundwater, which can have really significant consequences. Transport pollutants from roads, et cetera. Go on. So the historic approach to stormwater management, and this is actually at this point really a historic approach because Act 167 is now, it's not really that much younger than I am, and I just turned 62. So it's definitely the original approach was get the water out of the way as quickly as possible, as fast as possible, using concrete channels and whatnot. And we are moving over time more and more to the philosophy of keeping water where it falls, increasing infiltration. Next slide, Carol. So just one impact I do want to note for those of us who care about birds and bees, and I'm a tree hugger, is that one of the most serious consequences of increased stormwater runoff is to aquatic life. So what do? Mira just gave a pretty good description of what we do. We implement what were called, until about a year ago, best management practices, but we're not calling them, wait, they're SCMs now, stormwater control measures, okay? So we don't call them BMPs anymore, we call them SCMs, or at least we're supposed to. You can call them whatever the heck you want. Yeah. So here are some of the stormwater management practices that are accessible in a non-regulatory framework. Putting in pervious driveways, rain gardens, riparian buffers, disconnecting your downspouts. So let's get straight to it. What is a rain garden? We're just gonna pause on this slide for a sec because you are looking at a rain garden. So that is the anatomy of a rain garden. Not 100% of the time, because different soil conditions and the presence or proximity of karst topography can change this, but this is the anatomy of, Mira, do you say 95% of rain gardens? 75%? 75%. So there will be rock storage at the bottom. Often there will be some kind of geotextile in between the rock. There will be generally a soil on top that is either an amended form of the native soil, or sometimes engineered soils are brought in. The engineered soils being brought in are going to be much more common for the flavor of rain garden that are designed by stormwater engineers, and not necessarily something that you would put in your backyard. But having said that, there are actually 2 rain gardens within about a mile from here that we built at the water treatment plant, that we did bring engineer soils in, because the soils that were adjacent to the building over at the wastewater treatment plant, it looked like they had just backfilled with concrete mixed with ash, mixed with whatever the heck. Yes, sir?
Is that the Bethel one?
No, there's one here at the Upper Saucon wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Rain garden, and there's a sign right there. You can drive in and look at it. And then there's also another rain garden at the Upper Saucon Township building. Do you remember? I think we brought in engineered soil for that too. If what you're digging up, if the soil is just atrocious, and you're building a rain garden the size of the space that we're occupying here, it's not that expensive. In this case, we actually had it donated by Andy Curtis's H&K donated it. So that this is the anatomy. So just from the bottom up, rock, sometimes geotextile, soil, mulch, and plants. So is everybody kind of got that in their head? Yes, sir.
Can you use the natural soil of the area?
Absolutely, if the natural soil is something that, mostly you would use the natural soil. Mostly you would, but in a couple of cases, if what you're doing, like we did at the wastewater treatment plant, is we dig it up and it wasn't really soil in the first place, then we're gonna bring in soil. Okay, so the rain that flows into a rain garden, the entire point of a rain garden, this is another slide I just wanna pause on for a sec. The entire point of a rain garden is to infiltrate water instead of having it run off. So I could actually just stop this presentation right here, and I would, Kathy, I would have answered Kathy's question, which is, what is a rain garden and what does it do? So though everything else is just details, but that is, what is a rain garden and what does it do? Yep. So essentially, the goal is to keep water where it fell out of the sky, instead of it having to be transported through channels, over land, flooding, across lawns and whatnot. Next slide. Here are some examples of rain gardens. The one on the bottom right is one that Ross designed, what are we gonna say, about 10 years ago?
Yeah.
That's it, at Bushkill Township. Okay. So now I'm just gonna go through quickly what you would do if the community, if the EAC, or if any of you want to put a rain garden somewhere because, as Mira just put it, because you want to put a rain garden there. Not because you're being regulatorily required to stick one there, but because it looks like it's a good idea. A common reason for doing that is what she said, is where there is ponding or a puddle and it's getting on everybody's nerves. And in the case of the one that Ross designed, the water was running off of impervious area, and then it was just ponding against the base of the building. And it was annoying everybody. So we stuck a rain garden there. Next slide. So you want to get an idea of where to put the rain garden. So areas where water is already collecting is a good place. Next slide. You really want to pay attention. So people are often shocked when I say this, and I don't actually just say this for rain gardens. I get a lot of water questions, and why is this happening? Why is that happening? What do we do about this? And I will often tell people, can you go out when it is absolutely pouring and has been for a while and get me a video? People are shocked by this request. They're just totally thrown, but it's very, very difficult to figure out why the water is sitting where it's sitting and why it's driving people crazy where it's driving people crazy if you have no idea where it came from in the first place, right? Yeah. So I think most of my colleagues in the conservation world who I've worked with for a long time have been sent out to take videos of water under flood conditions. If you have a choice about where to stick your rain garden, a site with full sun is always best, just because it is the easiest to vegetate. That simplest thing. You want to avoid areas with poor drainage. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Areas that are deeply shaded, steep slopes. You can put a rain garden on a steep slope, but then you have to build a berm around it. And at that point, you 100%, even if you're doing this in your backyard, need to ask Mira or the equivalent, because the berm that you would put on the Dalton slope side is then the structural weak point, and you need it not to be, so you actually need an armored outlet. I won't go on in this vein, but just take my word for it. If you need to stick a rain garden on a slope, ask an expert. Yes? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Wait, just go back super quick. Also, avoid putting rain garden in active karst topography. I think that applies to everything anywhere near Route 33. Yes, ma'am. You want to add something?
No, just it depends. Avoid mostly in active karst topography. Sometimes, not always. It depends.
Avoid putting rain gardens in karst topography with the subnote that the engineer equivocated. Yes, ma'am.
What is karst?
Limestone.
Oh, thank you.
Sinkholes.
Sinkholes. Sinkholes, right. Okay. Areas near sidewalks, roads, or any structure that may become a hazard or may be damaged if your rain garden overflows. We had a situation which, because this is being live streamed, I will not explain in detail, with a rain garden that we put in a township here in the Lehigh Valley where it was adjacent to a sidewalk, and we were told that children were falling into the rain garden and needing to be rescued by emergency personnel. Now, the rain garden was like 6 inches deep, and it was 6 feet off the sidewalk, so that kind of strained all of our credulity, but nevertheless, the point was taken, is that you don't necessarily want a depression closely adjacent to a sidewalk or a paved area that is hidden, the depression is hidden by full height vegetation.
May I ask about that then? Where there's
Speaking to the mic, please.
Aren't there applications for roadside water collection in greening in these?
Absolutely. I think
called
the
a rain
example
garden?
they're giving here is you don't necessarily want to have a rain garden where people may inadvertently stumble into it because they don't see it.
Okay. I saw that there was one project that was done in a residential area. Maybe it was in Bucks County or Monroe, that had where they went through and the community randomly got picked for where they would put rain gardens in on the outside, and then there was cutouts on the curbs that went across the pedestrian walkway there into the rain garden that was on the person's property on the other side. How does that conflict with that note?
It conflicts with it. I mean, it does.
Was it a bad idea?
If a community is choosing to do that, then that is that community's choice. But sometimes people will object to it and call it a tripping hazard. So, or, you know, that it's somehow hazardous. I think, let's go back to the situations in which we put in rain gardens. So if Lower Saucon Township decides to put a rain garden in at a particular park or in an area, somebody may bring that up as an issue. We don't want to put this issue, you know, this here for this reason. If you choose to put one on your property, or if it is part of the development design of, you know, and permitting, then that's what it is. But it is something that sometimes people object to.
Well, also one safety issue that can be.
Hold on. Speak louder.
A safety issue that can be genuinely you kind of always want to think about when you're putting in a rain garden, especially near walkways, not just safety, but also property issues, is there will be a point at which you want the rain garden to overflow. Usually these things are designed to infiltrate the lower storms. You're like less than 1 inch of rain in 24 hours. And then when you get more than that, you get a big storm, you want it to overflow, right? And so you make one area of your berm a little lower so that it can overflow. But if, for instance, you have that overflow area pointed at the foundation of your building, not the best. Don't do that. Or pointed at a sidewalk, you know, handicap entrance, maybe don't. You know, so like keep the safety and or property issues in your mind.
All right. Next slide. Obviously call before you dig. And it doesn't always help. Second garden, Ross, were you there the day this happened? The second garden, there's 2 gardens over at the wastewater treatment plant, and they came out and they put every possible flag known to man, and the operator is doing his thing, and he just freezes. And he's like, Rebecca, get out. And he slowly gets out of his machine and walks away and waits a few minutes and goes back and looks, and he has just hit the gas line. So.
I hit a power line.
Yeah.
And I actually dug it, and I remember where I thought I put it, but I didn't, and I should have called them first.
Yeah.
Because I hit it, and I really found out, like Thor came down.
Yeah, so call before you dig. And usually it helps. You're gonna need to know your soil type. So this is where I'm gonna start kind of moving through some of this pretty quickly, because the next section here is just the technical part of what you're going to do if you decide to put a rain garden in. I am not gonna drill into this in depth. I just want everybody in the room to remember that I've said these things. You can have this presentation, but a lot of people's eyes start glazing over the minute you tell them to take a soil test. Next. We can't possibly have a single presentation that involves stormwater SCMs, control measures, best management practices, without including the soil triangle. So there is the obligatory soil triangle. It has to be in every presentation. You need to do a percolation test. A percolation test is not difficult. You can simply look up how to do a percolation test on the internet. Better yet, if the township or any of you, or you're talking to constituents, reach out to the Master Watershed Steward Program, the WCLV, and we can help get you the expertise on how to do these things. So just remember, before you put a rain garden in location X, you want to know what the soil is, and you want to know how quickly it infiltrates water. That's pretty much common sense. The borough of Quakertown does not seem to necessarily have.
I won't talk about
Let's
that.
not talk about that. Okay, we're not going to discuss this. Okay, next slide. So obviously, the higher the water flows into the ground, the smaller your garden can be. Make sense? If your soil has a lot of sand and it infiltrates water really fast, you need less space. If your soil has a lot of clay, you're going to need a bigger space to take the same amount of rainwater and infiltrate it into the ground. Make sense? So you don't need to remember anything about this because we are getting into the technical stuff, but we do have the resources here in the room and elsewhere to help you through this if anybody wants to put one in. But remember, and I'm about to get further into the weeds, and then I'm gonna let Ross and Mira spend a minute or two getting even further into the weeds on this, that this is a technical process. So if people are just planning on going out and digging and kind of making it happen, it's not likely to just coincidentally work out. I'm not saying it never has, but it really is something that takes some thought. Carol? So the size of the rain garden depends upon the infiltration rate of your soil and then the size of the impervious area contributing to the rain garden. Next slide. So, I'm not actually going to read this because I think most people would kind of zone out. Ross, you kind of created a spreadsheet to do this for the ones that.
Kind of offensive, but. And you brought up seed. One of the reasons why we did the mix was to make sure we didn't have weeds in the soil. So that's a good idea to try to use a professional mix. But these are calculations, they're not scary. So you can see this right now as a roof that's 50 by 12 and a half. Okay, we get an inch of precipitation, and we're moving along here real quickly, but you can see if you have a 6-inch deep rain garden, how much you're gonna store. Okay, and then you can see you need 52 cubic feet over a half a foot, so 104 square foot garden.
And that's what you made a spreadsheet that did this, right?
Right, now this is really specific to an application. You change these numbers, you're gonna get bigger square feet at the bottom. And you're making some assumptions here as to how permeable the soils are. But why don't you go to the next one? So the next one's just a bigger storm. So if my roof is seeing 5 inches of rain and I make a 519 square foot rain garden, it's not that big, okay? So you can see a huge difference in the size of your garden depending on how much water you get. So one thing I want to mention, the water is coming in the one application off of a parking area where the water would run across the grass and out into the street, and they were getting freezing situations, and that's why we stuck that there. So it is site dependent, and that one in particular we were really happy with because they called and said there's no water out in the street. So, okay, don't be afraid to calculate it.
So before I move on, Mira, do you want to spend a minute quickly, maybe Carol should go back, I don't know, and just talk about how what you do differs when you do a technical.
Yeah. So depending on if you want your rain garden to count for different things, you're gonna calculate the way you engineer the thing is gonna change, right? When you look at your MS4 permit, you have a certain amount of pollutants that you need to remove during one permit cycle, which is 6 years. And during that 6 years, you're gonna have to come up with a certain number of projects that take those different, and you might say, okay, we have a rain garden and we're hoping to take care of, 200 pounds a year of sediment by using this rain garden. You have a whole different set of calculations, how much sediment is removed by a rain garden. Do we need, you know, other engineered things to help us out? How much space do we have? Like, what can we do for this? We are putting in a rain garden because we need an earth moving permit. We need to build a set of houses, and we're putting in a rain garden to deal with our volume. We have this much volume of stormwater that the DEP says we have to deal with, and this is how we're going to do our calculations a different way to figure out, you know, what will the DEP count. And the DEP has this all laid out for engineers to do. How can we get that volume reduced? So there's a couple different reasons you might put them in, and there's a bunch of different reasons or different calculation methodologies depending on what regulation is making you put that in.
So, and I'm going to kind of run through the rest of this quick and then go for some questions. But again, I just want to make it really clear that there is a distinction between the rain garden, that's the rain garden that Ross designed at the Bushkill Township building, that was designed to solve a particular extremely local problem for no regulatory purpose. They just had this runoff problem. The one that's directly adjacent to the Upper Saucon Township building is similar. They just had a lot of roof runoff and wanted it to go somewhere, versus rain gardens and other best management practices that are being designed and built to meet regulatory obligations. So for the construction timeline, you need to kill the grass before, again, in a lot of cases for regulatory ones, you don't need to kill the grass because you've just cleared 500 acres or whatever, but you do need to kill grass to do it. You can kill grass with herbicides, cardboard, plastic, whatnot. Then you excavate. You don't want to drive the machine on the soil because you don't want to compact it. You add the under rock or gravel or whatnot, amend the soils, or bring in outside soils. Plant the plants. You generally need to have the ability to water them and install mulch. So the typical depth of rain gardens is 5 to 8 inches, depending upon the soil. Is that typical for regulatory? A little deeper?
You can have them for NIPD's permits. I've seen them, because they're also called bioretention basins. I've seen these things 8 feet deep.
Okay, so.
It just, yeah.
But at that point, it's not a rain garden in the same way. It's a larger version of the same thing. Right, yeah. Exactly. One that we would put in for the heck of it, because you want to have a rain garden, would be
not be any deeper than
8 inches.
8 inches, yeah.
Okay. You do need an inlet and an outlet. Next slide. So we have actually done this, go out and actually spray where, so the person operating the machine or the people digging by hand know where they're digging. You can dig out one by hand if it's small and you're feeling vigorous and people want to skip their, Pilates or whatever aerobics classes. I've never done one that we've always worked with the public works people and dug them out with the backhoe. I generally find that public works operators love building these things. I've worked with public works departments all across Pennsylvania, and the operators really get a kick out of it. They spend a lot of time dealing with water mains and infrastructure, and they really like to come back to something that they dug out that has flowers in it. Also, a lot of these men, it's never been a woman in my case, but I'm sure there are female operators, but a lot of these guys really pride themselves on their eyeballs and their ability to eyeball a gradient that you give them. They're very proud of it, and they love using the laser level and finding out that their eyeball is right. Shallower slopes are more desirable. That seems obvious. Again, I'm not going to go into this, but we can at some point if you have a specific site. The bottom of the rain garden should be level, back to my operators with a really good eyeball. And you want the side slopes to be 3-to-1, 4-to-1. Next slide. So the inlet on the left there is at that same rain garden in Bushkill where that's the inlet, the rock inlet that takes the roof leader into the two rain gardens. You'll see that there's a splitter, and Jim Wilson, who's with Northampton County Parks, basically spent the entire day running to various construction supply stores for an entire day to find that splitter. So that was an effective use of time. Again, you don't want it to cause erosion where the water's coming in, so it should be hardened, and the outlet as well. Sometimes the outlets can be a riser, like in this picture. Oftentimes they look like a little spillway. So there's one example. Next slide. So this is the example you were talking about where they're being put adjacent to sidewalks. And this is pretty common. The city of Philly has a lot of these. This is part of their Green City Clean Water program, and they have a lot of these adjacent to sidewalks.
This is what excites me the most about these things, to capture that first flush.
Yep.
And the road salt.
Yep.
And we're going to talk tonight about the salt snapshot. Perhaps getting involved with that.
Yep. And you're bringing up a good point for the ones that are planted for that reason. There are some native plant nurseries in Jersey that have a lot of salt-tolerant plants because of the intertidal zone, and sometimes it's good to interplant the salt-tolerant plants because that's all that will end up living happily. Next slide. You may need a berm if your site is sloped. If you find yourself needing a berm, call an engineer. I have some in my pocket that I can provide to you. I just talked about choosing the right plants. I'm gonna run through these slides super quick. Next one. So obviously choose plants that are appropriate to your site. You may need to ask an expert. We have experts in this coming out of our ears. So if you have any questions about what to plant in a rain garden, or really what to plant anywhere, between the Watershed Coalition, the Master Watershed Steward Program, Master Gardeners, we have answers to that stuff coming out of our ears. So obviously you want it to look nice. You're interested in having pollinators, but there can be a real problem with like things like Joe Pye weed that get 8 feet tall and flop over, and sometimes people get really upset. This is Pennsylvania, and here in Pennsylvania, people want things to look neat. So a plant that gets 8 feet tall and then falls over on you is just not a starter in some places. This is one of my all-time favorite conservation graphics. Look on the far left. I use this graphic in like half of the presentations I give. You know, you can roll up turf grass because the roots are so shallow. Obviously choose natives, and if you're doing rain gardens with grant funds here in Pennsylvania, you'll have no choice because that will be a requirement. You do not want to be watering them on into the second and third year. You want the plants that survive to be ones that are suited to that location. You want to include plants that hold the ground down year round, and some that have semi-evergreen leaves. And Paul and Jennifer, I know we have a couple native plantings where there has been some erosion. I think there's 1 or 2 here in the Saucon Creek area, and I'm interested in actually trying out some of those ones with the semi-evergreen leaves. Sounds good. So these are ones that have semi-evergreen basal leaves, and I'm not sure that they're things that I've planted before, but I'm excited to give them a shot. This seems pretty obvious. It's wetter in the middle of a rain garden than it is at the edges. You'd be surprised at the number of people who don't take that into account when they plant, because usually the rain garden is not filled with water when they're planting, so they're not really thinking about this. So think about it. So this is an aerial view of the same thing. You should be grass and sedge heavy because flowers do not have huge root systems. Flowers are pretty, but they're not going to be what hold the ground down. That is a picture of me on the right planting, I guess that's that Bushkill. Yeah. So that's planting plugs at Bushkill. You can use container stock if you like. It's approximately 10 times as expensive, but depending upon what the goal is for establishment, do you use mostly, in development situations, do you use mostly plugs or the larger stock?
There are requirements. So you'll usually have a mix of plugs with seed, but in some situations, especially big basins that need to be established within the first year, there will be a certain amount of container stock that is required.
Okay, so and I think that is actually like a great example of what we're talking about, where there's a difference between best management practices that are put in for regulation. So if it needs to be established quickly, you need to put in that 10 times as expensive. But honestly, in comparison to the $1 million houses they're selling, Metza, right? I'm not going to go into where to get native plants here locally. Suffice it to say that we have some of the best native plant availability within about 7 or 8 miles of where we're sitting anywhere in Pennsylvania. So we're in really good shape here. Yes, sir.
Are they reasonable rates?
Well, Kind Earth Growers is in Ottsville. They only sell wholesale, but we buy wholesale. Okay. So, yes, they're between $1 and $1.50 a plug. Container stock is 8 to 12 for are they 1 or 2 gallon containers? Both. 1 to 2 gallon containers, 8 to 12 bucks, depending on the species.
Can the public come in there?
No.
No, it's okay.
Kind Earth.
It's like wholesale.
Kind Earth is wholesale, but if you need stuff from it, we can order it, and we do. I've ordered stuff for the Saucon Creek watershed. Well, they've ordered their own too. I mean, we have access to getting it wholesale. Mrs. Smith at 100 Main Street can't get it for herself, but we can get it for her. And then there are many places locally where you can buy native container stock on a retail basis, Edge of the Woods being the best place.
Do you have a list of those?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You could provide them?
100%, but it's sitting on a website somewhere. I think it may be on our website. In fact, I may have put it on our website.
Okay.
But it's like 7:15 and I can't remember what I did 6 months ago. But we have a website that lists all of the, Jennifer or Paul, would one of you remind me tomorrow? Yeah. And I'll just send that out to you and you can send it out to the EAC. It is sitting on a website. Also, for anybody who cares, the Master Watershed Steward Program right now is running a plug sale. Jennifer, I know, has that information because Shannon sent out an email about it a couple hours ago, so you could pass that along. Every 12 inches or so, every foot is a good place to plant. You want it basically to grow out and cover the area. So it generally fills in pretty nicely. And it looks good.
Yeah, it looks really good.
So some people, there's a great, I hadn't thought about giving the presentation this way, so I don't have my speaker's notes, but whoever put the speaker note on this slide was saying something like, beware of turning your rain garden into a botanical zoo. You don't need 2 of every animal in the ark. So it can be visually much more appealing to keep a rain garden to, a limited number of species rather than giving into the temptation to have
planting.
I love the idea of a botanical arc being something we should all avoid. We have fact sheets coming out of our ears. I have not used these fact sheets, but I am going to look at them, the ones that show different species and what they look like right after they're planted through maturity. That'll help you know, what belongs there and what doesn't. There's lists of plants here. I can't include cardinal flower in any presentation without telling the audience that that is my personal favorite wildflower. Keep going, yeah.
Do you need to know the soil type to plant these?
No, these are all native to Pennsylvania.
If your soil is good enough to grow plants in, like you didn't, it's not just like chunks of concrete that like turf grass won't grow in, they'll probably do fine. And different plants, they won't explain themselves, but sometimes like only the one sedge really takes off, and then the other one you planted just struggles and gets completely, and they won't explain themselves, but you don't really need to like, they all pretty much do well in our native soils.
You will plant a whole bunch of this sedge over here and a whole bunch of that sedge over there and come back 3 years later and find that they've switched places without them having told you why. Yeah. It's very bewildering, but whatever. So you do, and I'm just going to whiz through the end of this, you do have to maintain them. At this point, if we had a little more time, I would simply turn the mic over to Jennifer and Paul, who could then just howl with anguish into the microphone for 5 minutes about the struggles to maintain certain types of native plantings with pressures of invasive plants. The struggle is real, and you really have to have a plan. If you put a rain garden or any native planting in, you have to have a plan to maintain it and keep an eye on it. And you have to have the availability of funds to replant if needed. And maybe you should have Paul and Jennifer present on their personal struggles on these. I mean, it is real. So you need a maintenance plan. You only want to mulch the first year. You do not want to cut the vegetation down, and water your first year, replace failed plants, and then after that, let it go. Cutting back dead tops is often a good idea. Most Pennsylvania native seed need to stratify, so the seed will not germinate unless it goes through freeze-thaw cycles. So once plants go to seed, if you go out in the winter and cut them, they'll fall to the ground, and it'll help them through their native cycle. All right, I don't think I need to run through all the rest of this, but you can go through it super quick, Carol. That's more delicate. Plants will rearrange themselves over time according to their needs and preferences and whims. So I really wanted to bring you guys some of the Homeowner's Guide to Stormwater booklets. I have publications spilling off shelves in my home office. I couldn't find any, so I sent Mira to look for them at the Conservation District, and you guys couldn't find any.
And then we went to the Penn State Extension office, and it turned out that Brad just took them all to Western Pennsylvania with him. Oh, so.
So I talked to Erin Frederick today, the statewide Master Watershed Steward Coordinator. We were talking about 15 different things, and she's gonna have these reprinted. So these are super helpful and go over a lot of things that I just went over. Anybody who's interested can get a watershed-friendly yard certification. This is a super fun program that's on the Nurture Nature website. And it's kind of fun to go through the questionnaire and then find all the things that you shouldn't be doing, but you are doing anyway. And then just quickly, Carol, here are some examples, just go through the pictures. That was one before it was planted. All right, that's all I got for you guys. So does anybody have any questions? And we can pass the mic around if needed. Yes, sir.
Just one question. What kind of stone do you use for the base?
Okay, are we talking a rain garden that you're
Rain
gonna
garden.
put in your yard?
Yeah.
To be?
Pea gravel.
Pea gravel.
Pea gravel.
If you're gonna put it in your yard, what do you put in yours? If you design one?
It depends. Sometimes you don't put it in at all. Sometimes you will need a certain amount of storage. Sometimes you will put in an under drain and you need a certain amount of support for it. It depends.
So again, what a civil engineer is gonna design or review the design for a development or a redevelopment or regulatory stormwater management is not gonna be what the township would stick, you know, in a local park. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. This is
extremely
wonderful.
helpful.
Yeah.
You covered everything that I was gonna ask. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
thank
if
you.
you guys have further questions, it's good. If you have further questions, my mother, who's the president of the Watershed Coalition of Lehigh Valley, is amazing. She's here. She's not getting paid right now. Okay, this is a volunteer job. This is volunteer for Ross. You guys met Paige, I understand, a couple weeks ago from my office.
Yeah.
And I'm here from the Northampton County Conservation District. It is our jobs to answer your questions from 8 to 4, 5 days a week, except holidays. So, my mother knows everything and is a great resource. Also, though, sometimes people will email the Watershed Coalition and then get very upset when they don't get their responses, or it is literally mine and Paige's jobs to answer your questions. So do always feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
And it's not actually true that I know everything. I'm just really full of it. And so I can appear to know more than I actually do. But seriously, the Northampton County Conservation District for you guys is the resource, because if you want answers to these questions, there are engineers there to answer your questions. There's an engineer there. All right.
Thank you so much.
Anything else?
No, I mean, you're right. It's a two-sided, well, multifaceted approach. And to bring this to the residents, for them to do privately, is one thing. That's awesome. For us as a township, to determine if there's locations, whether it's public works buildings or here or on one of our parks and rec or wherever it may be, that this would be a beneficial thing for stormwater management, whether it's MS4 compliance, helps reduce our amount of sediment or runoff or whatever the qualifier we are. For the road salt aspect and the pollutants, I think this is a powerful tool in all of that. One thing talking about, obviously, a buck or two, a plant and a plug, you want to make sure you're picking the right species and you're putting them in the right location so that they have the best chance of survival. But what about, the grants, and how does that work? Where I know I was just over at one, we were doing a meadow conversion over right off at Cedar Creek with Lehigh County, right down from the office, from the Penn State extension office there. And that was a group effort from volunteers and some grant money that came through to make that a reality.
All of
How
the
did we
rain
get there?
gardens that we, the Watershed Coalition of Lehigh Valley, working with the local watershed associations, have put in to Bushkill, Penn Argyl, Plainfield, Upper Saucon, I'm missing a couple. The Trexler Meadow, the Heller Homestead project we're doing now, a riparian buffer project over in Coopersburg. Those were all grant projects that the Watershed Coalition held the grants, and we did them. We did the construction with volunteers. So it is totally doable. If next year Lower Saucon Township has a grant that they want to put together, you would work probably with Jennifer and Paul, and then we would work collaboratively with them.
Or even a great question for Paige specifically, or Paige and I want to do this. What are the grants that would support this? That's the question Paige exists to answer.
So one last word, depending upon the role that this EAC has within the structure of Lower Saucon Township's government, and I know that that can change over time. Some EACs will play a role in the review of plans if development or some kind of proposal is coming in that affects sensitive land. So generally speaking, it'll be the zoning board and whatever that will look at all plans, but then sometimes in some municipalities, some plans will come in front of the EAC if there is a specific concern. If that happens and you guys are looking at a specific plan with a specific concern, your first phone call should be to Mira and Paige to get their expertise, because they will know what they're looking at and they will also understand the regulations and will be able to give you a good idea of where the township may have some room for movement and where what the developer has proposed is in direct accordance with land development and DEP regulations. So if that is a role that this EAC is playing, then that's something to consider in the future.
How do you motivate someone to use a bioretention instead of hardscaping? I mean, if there's a cost factor associated with that, but.
It is the law. It depends on what they're doing. It all always depends. If you are, so your township has regulations. Your township has a stormwater ordinance. It has a zoning ordinance. So there is a certain amount that your township engineer, their job is to look at the plans that are submitted to them, you know, small ones like a single house and big ones like a big warehouse development. Their job is to say, does this match the ordinance? So your ordinance is going to say things like, you have to reduce the rate by this much, the rate of stormwater runoff by this much. You have to reduce the volume by this much. You have to reduce the pollutants by this much. That will be on top of if they move over an acre's worth of soil, they also have to get an NPDES permit, where then I am looking at the plans and the state has a whole other list of rules. You have to reduce this much volume, you have to reduce this much rate, you have to do this much, you have to put in these SCMs, these stormwater control measures, to mitigate it. Now, how strict is Lower Saucon Township stormwater ordinance? I don't know, I haven't read it. Could it require more of developers? Is it adequate for what you want your township to look like? I don't know. That's also what you have a township engineer for. But it's good to note that when you end up having something like if you ever have a engineering plan set that you guys are looking at as a group, nobody expects you to know how to read an engineering plan set, and nobody expects you to know how to read a stormwater report, and that's why you have township engineers, and that's why you have me. So if you're ever like, we want to understand or want to know what this is, or there's a lot of objections to this, or people go to school to learn to read engineering plans and engineering reports, and nobody expects you to be able to do that. I think that's the point that you're trying to make.
No, thank you. Because we do, and that is something that we do review, and that partly generated the whole MS4 and the brain
Yeah.
burner and the education. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, I will never give a partial opinion, but I will give you information.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions?
Thank you.
That was
Mayor
really
Ross,
helpful.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your
Yeah,
time.
thank
This
you
was
so
great.
much for having us, and good luck. I hope the meeting doesn't run too late. Oh, you know what? As a woman remembers to return.
Oh, man, I'm a millennial, I don't know.
Carol, did we get a copy, Carol? Did you get a copy?
That's okay, I'll make you a copy, Rebecca. And also, all my information is on our website, of course,
Okay.
the Northampton County Conservation
Yeah,
District
this
website.
is something I would have to show you.
Yes, you have my email?
Yep, I appreciate it. How do you pronounce your first name?
Mira,
Mira.
like look in
Can I have
Spanish.
a card?
Okay,
Yeah, you can have one too.
okay, thank you.
Honestly, with America, I had even one, so.
All righty.
Take a picture of it.
Oh,
You
yeah,
guys can have
I
a
can
few of
take
them.
it. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Forget about it. That's what it was.
I don't think it's that.
Are there,
That's why I haven't tried to test
Yeah,
it.
I don't think it's that, but you have rescission NC5.
So let's bring that up. I'd like to bring that up if we could.
Oh, you know too?
Yeah, it takes a while, so.
Because it wasn't maintained.
Angry about the fact.
Because I was at the schoolhouse today, the open house is on Saturday for the schoolhouse.
It is. Also, I plan on.
What the hell they're doing.
I have to manipulate things in 3 dimensions with a mouse and keyboard all day long, so I don't want to do it anymore. So it's clunky, it crashes, also like a lot of things aren't totally well thought out. I was
So
just
if I
planning
may
on-
interject, Mara,
What direction are we going in?
sorry, we have to finish our meeting.
I'm so
My
sorry.
apologies.
It's nice to meet you. You have my information if you want to talk Sid.
This was wonderful.
Thank you so
are
much.
there fees involved with the services?
So if we could
No, this
get
is our
going.
job. This is, we're the government.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
And how will they set up a meeting?
you can just email me, and we'll also get some EMS texts in. So outreach
Mira-
to the township governments is part of our job.
Okay,
Do you want to take it out in the hall?
Thank you again.
thanks again.
No apologies from you. Thank you. All right. So Chad, I want to thank you for spearheading and getting Rebecca here, and it was a great topic, so.
Really excited to bring that forth here.
Yeah, yeah. And Carol, maybe we could send it out with the minutes, the PowerPoint. However you would normally distribute it would be good, I think, for everybody.
Get it on the website.
Yeah. And could we add it to our website?
I just asked Paige, Rebecca. She said that would be fine, I just have to remove the comment. So
Okay.
I'm looking to make sure that I did download it correctly first.
Okay, good, great. So to go on, we had no development items. We also have an update on the adopted spot, but I was very pleased because you had provided us the data for spring 2025, and there were 60.5 hours it was for everybody in Lower Saucon, so it was a great thing to see. And 104 volunteers.
Wow,
And 148 bags were collected.
great.
Yeah, excellent. So thank you for sharing that.
One of my miscellaneous emails, I don't know who puts that together, probably Carol.
What, I'm sorry.
All the facts and figures on the road collection.
Oh, yes. That, for, MS4?
No, for the adopted roads.
Oh,
I think you collect,
yes.
you collect that info.
Sorry, trying to see if I downloaded it correctly.
Thank you. And then, once again, we're already working item B. We're talking about the educational ideas, and we had, obviously, the rain garden tonight, MS4. So please keep the ideas coming so that we can continue opening this up to the public. I think that was good to see some additional people here. So also, is there any update on the plastic bag update?
I can go through a little bit. I didn't. I was doing a little research to see what's, wait, let me get my spreadsheet. So, what I found in looking at the information, there's now 40 municipalities throughout the state of Pennsylvania that have plastic bag bans. And I think it's 13 states that have a whole state, which include all the ones surrounding us, New York, New Jersey, Delaware. So we need to get with the program. What I found also is our state legislator recently just introduced a bill, House Bill 1547, for banning single-use plastic bags. So it was just introduced like within, it says June 3rd, so it's fresh.
I'm sorry.
It'll probably take forever.
House Bill
1547.
Who introduced it?
It actually has a lot of, it's like pretty much every Democratic representative is a sponsor. Primary is Maureen Madden. Not sure where the 115th district is, but she was the primary. But then there's like 20 other co-sponsors with her. Like I said, so it's just into a committee now. And then on the flip side, so when the House does a bill, the Senate sometimes does a bill as well. I don't have a number, but the Senate is starting to work on a similar bill. So Judith Schwank out of Berks County started working on a memo to create a bill for the Senate. So there are things happening at the state level, but I don't think we should wait for any of that to happen. We can still keep moving forward with our information. And I was looking into some of the ones that I could find, like what the fees that they charge or what the fees that they allow businesses to charge. So some businesses, some places don't allow any fee to be charged, which I don't think is correct. 10 cents is a common amount, and so is 15 cents per bag. Businesses can choose not to pass that on to a customer, but they can charge it if you have it in your ordinance, which I think is a good idea. So that way you're not putting a burden onto the business if it costs them so much to buy bags. So if it's a smaller business, it might be more of an expense or burden to them as opposed to like the Giant where
They could use it for advertising.
kind of part of their business. And then I was looking at some of the exemptions, some of the different exemptions. So we'd want to include stuff like that in our ordinances, so.
Right, like the dry cleaner bag.
Dry cleaner bag is like a common one that most of them have. Produce, bakery items, newspaper bags, if anybody gets a newspaper anymore. Things for live animals, which I'm not sure what that would be other than fish. I'm not sure what live animals you would put in a plastic bag.
Crickets.
Okay,
Fishing.
I guess, worms maybe, I don't know. And then things, dry cleaner bags.
All my feed comes in plastic bags now that you mention
Things
it.
that go, like a florist for wrapping up flowers, potted plants, and similar items. So these are things that we'll want to consider and include in what we write up, so I want to start writing something up, so.
Now, we have we have the ordinance from Penn Environment.
I do.
That's a good start.
I do have that.
Yeah.
I copied it and try to make it more worded how I need, how lower Saucon ordinances are worded so it doesn't, so it kind of blends in.
I understand.
Yeah, so that's the stuff I've been working on.
That's awesome.
And
That is wonderful.
as of last month, when we were at the Lehigh Valley EAC Network Roundtable.
Oh, that brings us to our next topic.
But the Bethlehem EAC is also talking about this and doing a survey currently.
Bethlehem EAC as
Bethlehem
in
City,
Bethlehem Township
City of Bethlehem.
Good,
City of Bethlehem. So,
good.
I mean,
Can
I
we
feel like
possibly consider doing a survey to get an understanding?
well, we have.
Well, we verbally did one.
I mean, about just the citizens and, to get that feedback.
Yeah,
But yes, you've
we
been,
didn't do citizens, but we could do that.
Is there a way to do that digitally with a constant contact to all of the township residents that are signed up?
I don't know,
to
we
our
would have to work
newsletter?
with Carol to see if there
Have we
is
ever
a
sent
tool.
out questionnaires digitally to the residents for general feedback?
Looking behind you.
I mean, I think we have when it came to the newsletter, correct?
You can do Survey Monkey,
Yeah,
I mean, you know.
And set up a short questionnaire?
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay, that would be great.
That
Yeah.
would be great.
I think so too.
How
So,
do
do you
we do
wanna
that?
update,
How do we do that? How do we start it? Do you
wanna
need a
get
list
some
of questions?
That'd be a good start.
And then we could do it similar to how we do we did the Park and Rec one.
that's right.
I was gonna say, I thought we just did one
yeah,
Parks and
yeah,
Rec.
you did just
Yeah,
do one for
yeah.
Parks, yeah.
So if you come up with the questions, approve the questions, and then I can put it all together.
Come
Okay.
up with questions for next time and then.
So Laura and Chad, you'll
Yeah,
take on the
okay, that's a
questions?
good idea. I think, and again, I went to 20, 30 businesses, you know, I think I've gotten a good sample size.
Oh, the
Of
businesses.
the largest areas here, and the feedback was generally positive.
That's good.
So, or, you know, there was maybe one or two takeout places that had some concerns because of the dollar amount of the food that they put in the bag.
Sure.
But, you know, there are other places that sell food and they have a thickened paper bag with a nice thick handle on it, so you can, they can do it.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Any updates on the Lehigh Valley EAC?
Yeah, so we did have the roundtable, the summer social at Bethlehem Township Community Center a month ago. It was great to see. There was 20, 30 people in the room. I'd like to say that Lower Saucon would probably had the largest contingent of representatives there. So, but it was great. It was in Easton, Bethlehem, Allentown, Macungie, Nazareth, East Allen. I'm missing a few, but there were people from all over there, and it was great to see all of this community of people with the same energies and ideas and all the projects that they're working on. Same things, you know. Personally then, you know, I did a presentation there on the digital interface that we're working on. You should all have this already, but the Google Drive and the Google Calendar that I've set up with Lehigh Valley EAC Network at gmail.com to container this, and then it has been since filled in with some information. So Palmer Township is having a speaker coming up that's on there. We put our road cleanup in there. There's been other events. So it's,
Like,
well,
well, this was short notice.
it was such short notice that
Really
we knew we
short
pulled
notice.
off this speaker at the last minute. But, so, you know, you would get a calendar that you can open up and look at the events and make attachments, and then there's a drive that everybody who was at the meeting has been slowly uploading ordinances and mailers or information that they have. So we're trying to distribute and disseminate all that information between all these various EACs in the Lehigh Valley, which I think is just awesome. So we're gonna have another steering committee meeting coming up at the end of July. I'm not sure, I can't remember the date exactly, but, so that's about
And
it.
that'll be electronic
Virtual.
invitation with a webinar, Zoom, like you did before.
Maybe, but I don't know if I'm driving this one or if it's gonna
Oh,
come
okay,
from
okay.
Lynn Rothman, who's at Bethlehem EAC.
Yeah, do you mind,
Pat yourself
if
on the
you,
back.
if you get it, can you share it? Even to Carol, and she can send it out?
Well, it's
Oh,
just the
this
steering
is
committee
steering committee, my
meeting,
apologies.
so I'm not sure if this is open to the public.
Gotcha, okay.
Did you learn anything, is any other municipality doing something, a new initiative that we haven't thought about? Just curious if there's something else out there that we're missing.
What were some of the topics? Stormwater basins, bioswales, open space preservations, plant inventories.
Sounds
Tree
very
pl-
familiar.
Tree planting, community tree planting outreach efforts, media and community outreach. Those were just some of the top topics.
There was a, now that you mention it, I don't know, I'm attached to all these different organizations, you know how they share email information. There was a grant, I had like a 3-day notice that the grant ended June 30th for tree planting in the municipality. Did you guys get that email? I can't remember which organization gave it, but it was like, announcement, you know, blah, 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 grant ends June 30th, and it was like 3 days.
We Can Serve sent that out, maybe?
No.
Can you forward it?
I can, but
Okay.
it came so late, you know, about free, the trees were free, you know, for the communities, but
Well, I wonder if they do it annually, something we can get on
good
top of for
idea.
next year.
Good idea, yep,
Yeah.
thank you, good idea. I'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, there's so many opportunities. I kind of feel like, you know, we've talked, and we've had this conversation before. We have a spreadsheet going somewhere where, and Russ, or Drew, I'm sorry, Drew has it.
Yes.
Where all these community engagement events that we could do, the art, trash to art and things like that. And with these rain garden opportunities and riparian buffers, we need, I don't know, maybe we need
Yeah, you're
a
right.
subcommittee to plan the calendar through the next
And
year.
now, I remember we were gonna do something with pollinators. Somebody, one of us was gonna do something with pollinators, and now the monarch's on the, I don't think it's endangered yet, it's on the whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But you'll get, the point is you'll get funding now for pollinators. That's the point.
Yeah, but we have to be
But I
on
do
it now
wanna
to look forward to
say-
next year.
Correct.
I
Ready
know,
for this,
and
so.
we do need to do that, and maybe that's a meeting that we have. But I think it's important to acknowledge all the good work we've done this year, which we
Correct.
hadn't done in the past. So I know it seems overwhelming, but we're now have educational, we're learning, you've got the bag. One of the items that's not been put on here is we've worked on the bylaws, we're ready to have it reviewed by the attorney. So all these things are coming along that will go to council, but pat yourself on the back, everybody, because we've really
We were
done a
stalled.
lot.
We
Yeah.
were stalled for a while.
Yeah, so, and maybe what we'll do, Chad, is we'll bring that up as an agenda item next month.
Okay.
Because I think that would be helpful to start working on it, like you said, so we have a calendar in place for next year.
Yeah.
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 Any updates on, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission? Okay, no updates, okay, good. But like I said, we are working on the bylaws. We did do a review and we have them ready. So hopefully, I'm gonna lean to Laura to see our next steps on that.
There's two
Get 'em-
things. Can I talk about real
Yeah, so
quick?
what do we think we're ready to
Have Steve,
over to Steve to look at?
yep.
Okay.
And the other one I wanna pick up, and I know we all wanna pick up something important dear to our heart, is I'd like to do the subcommittee on the open space. I think that's very important. I think there's a big need for it, and so, yeah, that would be the next one. And Chad, you had another point.
Sorry, yeah, just real quick.
Please.
Transportation Research Board, which I've been involved with for 20 years, almost 30 years, is restructuring right now. This is a federal level research organization, so they put an advertisement out for anybody who's interested to refriend the new committee structures on there. So I went it through and I looked for all the stormwater ones that I could get my hands on, all the environmental ones, the roadside planting things that I could find, in addition to all the roadside safety and guardrail stuff that I have my background in. So if I can send out a link to that to everybody, but I wanted to make it a point that it's on the federal level from National Academy of Sciences to be involved, maybe get some information on MS4 and on a deeper level. So, and then the last thing for MS4 specifically is I did send out an email last month on the
I must have missed it, on the rain barrels?
on the rain barrels and the yeah, our, I don't even know where my document is anymore. This thing. This thing. So following the MS4 guidelines and this, and then everything we got from the rain gardens today.
Yeah.
If we can start, if we get a copy of that, we can start working off of that. So
So
that,
is this like
that
a
is another subcommittee.
What are you calling it?
We were talking about stormwater management literature.
Okay.
So it kind of goes under the education.
It does, it does. I'm sorry. Stormwater management literature that's available on the website. Now that the website's up,
Yes.
now we can work on getting the content on there.
I'm sorry, the subcommittee is
Uh,
the two of
Yeah,
you?
we'll just rechange it.
Field, Russ, Janine,
Oh,
esteemed author.
yes. Okay, Wakefield,
Okay.
Russ, Janine, Chad, okay.
Any other discussion on that topic or any of our updates? We do have the electronic recycling the end of September. We'll get more information as we get closer to that.
Good.
Any activities on our calendar in the next 30 days before our next meeting?
Good question, and no, there is
Because
not.
I didn't have anything, okay.
Yeah.
I have two public comments, if you don't mind. One is just, there's something going on at Kingston Park.
Okay.
Do you know, what's going on at Kingston Park?
They're gonna dig up the, flowers that were there. There was nobody there to maintain them, and they just were overgrown. So Rick Kingston wants it dug up, and he's gonna have Plantique come in, and he's gonna pay for them to plant flowers in there.
Wow.
Will they be native species?
The,
Don't think so.
open house for Lower Saucon Township for the Lutz Franklin Schoolhouse is this Saturday. So I was up there today cleaning the schoolhouse, getting it ready for the open house. And there's a backhoe up there, there's dump trucks up there, and I'm seeing little children falling in holes up there. I mean, they really dug that out. So I'm sure maybe the next 2 or 3 days, I hope they'll have it.
They just started doing that.
Oh, is that
I think
all?
It was Friday.
It
they
just
started
happened.
doing it.
Oh.
And, I sent out an email to Maya, who sent out an email to others to help pull out all the native plants.
Okay.
So I don't know if she did or not.
I
But
don't-
she was given the time frame to do that, and they started digging that
Well,
out.
they dug it out today, for sure, because they were up there. So it was just coincidental. You know, the open house is coming up, so something happened. Now I
They
know.
intend to fill it in with.
Yes, they already have. They
Okay.
already started, I should
For
say.
those of you that don't know who Dr. Kingston is, his mother went to Lutz Franklin Schoolhouse. So he dedicated, he paid for the previous flower garden and stuff. So he contributed a lot to that park, Kingston Park.
And he continues to.
Okay.
The other public comment, which I don't know that you can address, but when you watch, I'm actually glad Priscilla's here. When you watch the township meetings from home, virtually, there's misinformation regarding the EAC. And I don't know if we have any obligation to.
Where is the misinformation?
It's usually coming from the public.
On the website?
No, live.
You all need to speak into the mic.
I'm not sure what you mean.
So, 3 times now, somebody came up to the podium from the public and gave some very erroneous information regarding the EAC. Now, I'm asking a question, because it's not coming from the council, it's coming from the public, but it's being announced at the microphone, and then, of course, there's misinformation being shared regarding the EAC, and I don't know if there's anything that we as a group, or do we not, is there anything we can do about that?
Just kind of comparing it to the council meetings when a lot of misinformation is being said and there's nothing we can do about it. The public has a right to come up here and, and say what they want to say. And I don't know, we could, maybe ask Steve, but,
Can we write a letter?
It's a shame because
Can
Yeah.
we write a statement for clarification?
Maybe you could speak up and
Yeah.
said, you know.
Whatever the topic is.
You have the last word before you adjourn your meeting. You know what I mean? So, make a statement.
Would you like to draft a statement
I
that we
would.
could put forth?
Thank you, I would. When you're watching from home, you can't participate, you know,
Yeah.
which I understand that as well. But, misinformation's being shared, or being presented, I should say. Yes, I'd be happy to draft a letter.
Okay, thank you. All right, and the last item at this point is our minutes. Has everyone reviewed the May minutes? You know, our June meeting was canceled. I know I asked a question about the bill. The information can be added to the end of the meetings, which you have in your packet, so I think that covered my question on that, just so we knew what it was, so it will go in the minutes as that. Did anyone else have anything, or provided Carol with an update?
Carol, is there a new format with the minutes? Because these minutes are wonderful.
It was approved by council to, summarize
Awesome.
comments, so.
And
Much better.
thank you for providing us with this. Appreciate it.
Do we have a vote?
Huh?
Do we have to have a motion to approve the minutes?
I was just getting ready to do that. Thank you, Chad. I just was living everyone a second. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Kathy. All in favor?
I'll second the motion.
Oh,
Jen,
thank
so
you.
it's
Second the
official.
motion to make it official. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Raise your hand. Seeing that everyone's in favor, the motion moves that the minutes can be approved. And-
I just need a clarification, not about the minutes. The bills, 9/34, 9/35.
Sure.
Is there something you want us to have ready for August? Or is there, is there some action you want the EAC to take?
No, at this point, when I was reading the minutes,
Right.
I want clarification, and there wasn't. I couldn't remember what the bill was,
Okay.
but if need be, please, let me say to everybody, if you have items you want on the agenda, let us know beforehand. We normally are doing the minutes the week before. Carol likes them, by Thursday, Wednesday?
What agenda items?
Yeah.
Before that, I send it to you
Yeah.
and Drew for approval or any suggestions, so I need to have it the week before.
Yeah, the week before, and then we send it out, so we review it, so feel free to add anything, but let us know.
Let you and Drew know, and then you let me know.
Correct.
It's gotta go to you.
Yeah, correct. So,
At this point, what we talked about last was whether or not we were going to write a letter as the EAC to the Committee on Environmental and Natural Resources,
Yes.
or also individually as residents doing it. So I guess my question is, do we have a form letter that we?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know if there's anything available for this to just,
Laura, Drew had a letter. He might have a form letter, actually. He might.
What was the topic?
I can't remember.
I
But
don't
it
know
was
if
like
it
a
was a form. I'm
generic,
sure
like,
he
we
created it.
support.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
Have some kind of-
he might.
Like a template.
We can bring it up next month. That bill, nothing's happening with that bill right now, but
No,
we
I
brought it up last
understand.
year. But to answer your question, I think that's a good idea, and we should bring it up with Drew, because I'm pretty sure he does actually have a form letter. He must.
okay. Yeah, sounds good. All right, with that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I say something?
Oh, yes, public hearing.
It was a pleasure sitting here watching you guys, and it's so nice sitting in the audience.
It's glad to have you.
I I was busy signing checks, like this many. But thank you, Carol, for bringing them out then.
Okay.
And, but I was very interested in the presentation, and, so you guys are doing good.
Thank you.
Baby
Appreciate
steps
it.
we're getting there, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I'm not coming every time.
Hey, you can watch us on YouTube.
All right, with that, I'll make a motion.
Do we have a
To adjourn.
second?
I second.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Adjourn, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we didn't do the salt. Oh.
What? The salt. Oh, the salt snapshot. Yeah. Well, it's not coming up anyways.
Yeah, it's actually October, so.
Yeah, let's bring that
Yeah,
on
I
the,
need to say that,
add
it's
that to the
October,
next agenda.
yeah, 1st to the 15th or some such, whatever.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was that email.